What's going on, everyone? Sean here with Triangle of Truth, and I am back this week with a very special rapid review. I'm here to talk about a comic called Parallel, which for the writer Jason Douglas is his very first comic story published. So I am actually really excited to be able to just to talk about it and to see him, in post, and being excited to see people buying it, and hearing their thoughts on it. So I'm genuinely excited to see that and be a small part of, his experience on what he's going through this time. So Jason, hopefully you see this, brother. Hope you enjoy the review. As mentioned, the comic is called Parallel. It is published by SourcePoint Press, written by Jason Douglas. Art is done by Adam Ferris. Justin Birch did the lettering. And the cover colors, which you'll see on the cover that we posted here, are done by Leslie Atlansky. I hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I severely apologize. So let's dive right into it. I'm going to start off by saying this was a very intellectual comic, and I really like that because not a lot of times have I read stuff over the last 5 or 6 years have I really had to think while reading a comic. I just kind of lose myself in it a little bit, but this one, I lost myself, but I was also very actively trying to think and keep up and, tie everything together with what's going on. The story centers around a main character, Landon, who is a former musician. He was a guitar player, met his wife at a concert, and got married to her. The book starts right off with showing him he had just been hit by a bus. And you come to learn that this was what they think is a suicide attempt. So he's at the hospital, he's comatose. You meet the wife, her name is Claire. She, of course, shows up to find out how he's doing. And this is kind of where you see, at first, a little bit of maybe where the problem is for Landon. First off, she doesn't, anytime anybody calls her Mrs. Smith, because that is Landon's last name, she always says, no, it's Marlowe, I kept my name. That to me right there was kind of like, okay, you can maybe have an idea of possibly where this is going. So she goes through the interview process. They explain to her that, you have witnesses stating that your husband just leapt out in front of this bus and got hit. She's having a hard time accepting that he was depressed and that he tried to commit suicide. So let's fast forward a track. While he's in the coma, Landon is trying to think of how to describe it. At least the way I interpreted the book going is this is his own mental battle. But he is approached by what, an alternate reality version of himself. They actually, they never name it, for lack of, I guess, a better phrase, that's what it is. And in this reality, Landon, stayed with the band. They were wildly successful, had put out albums and albums, so he was rich and famous and blah, 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 and he gets a taste of this from this character, stating, this can all be yours, blah, blah, blah. And so he goes through this, and of course, eventually you see a shot where he shoots up right out of the coma, out of nowhere. And then it fast forwards a little bit to he's in psychiatric therapy for his depression and whatnot, but he's still not really doing anything. He's just going to therapy and he's just sitting at home. So he's still kind of he's there, but he's not there, if that makes any sense. And anyone who's battled depression probably understands this as much as anybody. And yet again, he's going through the therapy and he's talking about these, they call them hallucinations. That's what the psychiatrists call them. But to him, they seem and feel very real. And Jason does a good job in writing this to where I honestly, even now, still struggle with, was this all just in Landon's head, or was this really like some kind of alternate reality version of him? And so that to me was why I liked it, because it got me really thinking about everything and the way Jason had presented the story and the way the story was unfolding. So after a little bit, he thinks that he's actually gotten away and the voice in his head is gone. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, it appears again. And the voice wants him to come back over and experience more of this life that, he eventually wants to leave to him. And in order to do this, though, he tells Landon, you know what you have to do. And then you see this, wonderful page where it's Landon just standing at the top of a stairwell. And then you see him fling himself. And then, boom, he's back in the world again. And he gets to experience it longer. You see more of his family life in this one. He's got a wife. He's actually happy with the wife. They have a child. They don't actually ever say if the wife's name is Claire or if it's somebody different. I'm assuming it's somebody different, though. And, again, they're about to release another album. They talk about, how talented he is and the sounds he made for it and this and that. And then, again, here he comes, comes back, but the voice tells him, you know what you have to do if you want to make this permanent. And so at this point in the story, Landon again goes one last time to see his therapist and talk about a few things. And he just tells her, thank you, it'll all turn out all right. He knows what he has to do. And then he decides to contact all of his old bandmates. It starts out, you see him get up with one of the guys, and it's not the friendliest of meetings, but it's not like, not an argument. But, they talk, and the guy was blunt with him, told him he thought it was selfish about how Landon, took everything into his own hands to break up the band and this and that. But since the band is broken up, the guy's become a music teacher. He's got a family. He's got a kid. He's been pretty happy. So he's come out pretty good on life. He asks about one of the other band members, and apparently this was, the bad boy of the group. Well, when the band broke up, the guy was already a drinker, and it just spiraled from there, and he had actually been dead for a year. So that hit Landon pretty hard. And then the very last guy, I guess he calls the, I don't know if it's his wife, or some family member, and he finds out the guy's living under a bridge. He's homeless. And he goes to see him. And what he's trying to do is, atone for his mistake. He's trying to apologize to everybody. And here in this exchange, it was very powerful. Because the guy tried to tell Landon that what had happened to him and him being homeless was not Landon's fault. He didn't have that kind of control over Landon. That was his choice and actions alone that brought him to that point. So he didn't need his sympathy or his apology. And I think this has, well, not I think, that this has a profound effect on Landon. Because I think it's at this point in the book when he decides what he has to do. The book ends with Landon leaving what you at first think is a suicide note. The way he leaves a letter. It says, you can see a few of the words, but the very last picture is Landon walking into a music shop to go buy a guitar. And so what I think personally the story was actually about was this was a guy who was just in an unhappy marriage, kind of, I guess, verbally abusive marriage. It just, it was never important. There was not a lot of real love there, this and that. And it just drove him into depression and eventually thoughts of harming himself, which is what led to the bus accident, the throwing down of the stairs. And the visions, I feel like, are him struggling with the idea of continuing living or not. But on the other side of the coin, what if it really was, this was really a parallel universe, but he had to sever all ties and kill himself to go live in that universe? I still lean more towards it's a mental battle within somebody else. And the ending of the book with him leaving the note for his wife, just telling him he can't do it anymore, was just him saying, look, I'm done, I'm leaving you, I'm moving on. And he decides that he's going to go and just be himself and just play music just to make himself happy, live his own life. And, to me, it was a very powerful message to see at the end. and to read that, because I know, you know, myself, I've struggled with stuff like that, and I know that's something else that a lot of people struggle with as well. So, you know, to me, this book was a great positive message to let people know, you know, hey, yeah, life can be kind of crappy at times, but, you know, in the end, you still have the power within yourself to live that life that you see in your head where you're happy and this and that, and you can choose to be happy and live your life and enjoy that. And I think, Jason, you know, I don't know if that's really what you were going for, brother, but that's what I took out of it, was a very positive and uplifting message. You know, even though the story was dark, it was definitely dark, but you were able to take that kind of a positive, powerful message out of it. So I highly encourage everybody to read this book. It's a great journey. It's very much one that makes you think and, you know, consider things that maybe you hadn't considered before, or see, you know, just different perspectives. Or, like, you know, we all love with some comics, it's a great way to escape reality. I mean, the book is thick. This is a good read. I was genuinely surprised, and you'll see it in the unboxing video. You know, for being a one-shot, it was generally about the size of a trade. So I had a great time in reading this, and it allowed Jason to really tell a good story here. The artwork by Adam, spot on. I loved it. It made it easy to follow along with what was going on and how the story was being told. So it's definitely one of those where everything came together, and it really made for a fun, intriguing, and different story. So definitely, if you can, if your local comic book shop carries Source Point Press, see if they carry this. And if it's not in stock, have them order it for you, or go to Source Point's website and order it directly from them. We'll even try to leave a link in the description of the video for a direct link to Source Point's website to purchase the comic. Anyways, that is all I got for this week, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you next time. Later, everybody.